and welcome to Screen Masters with me, Bav.
Me, Fluff.
And today we are back round to TV, so we are going to be taking a little journey through the Expanse, which is a TV show started by Sci-Fi some years ago. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
And then it went to Netflix.
No, it was cancelled.
Sci-Fi kept making it, but then it was on Netflix.
It was cancelled after season 3, and then picked up by my beloved friend, Mr. Jeff Bezos.
Indeed, Mr. Jeff Bezos. He's the only person who likes him. Just because he saved the Expanse, generally. Not because of his work practices. It just reminds me of the South Park episode.
Let's not go there. We're treading on water.
Exactly. So, before we get into it, we are going to hit some news. I believe Fluffy has some news for us.
Yeah, not a lot.
But I would just briefly like to turn to the page where I made these notes.
You're going to give me a quote?
I am, you see, because now we're going to go, after the last episode, obviously a bit of time has passed. So now I would like to quote the famous words of Jimmy Cliff and say, I can see clearly now, the rain has gone.
Okay, yes.
And that one popped into my head about 3 seconds after the Travis one.
Right, okay.
As an answer to the Travis one.
Right, understood.
Works. So yes, hello, welcome to this episode. We'll get into the news in a minute, but first let's just do the housekeeping. So, you can find us on YouTube. As you can see, we've got a lovely new background now. You can see our lovely faces, he says. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But go over to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type Screen Masters, Byte Back Media. You'll find us. Give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to on any of the videos. We check them all. If you want to support us more directly, you can go over to the Patreon site. And search for us there and donate at any tier from
$5, $10 and $15
with tiers of $1, $10 and $15.
Exactly, if you wish to. But you know, if you don't want to do that, just do us a favor. The YouTube, we can monetize that as long as we just, if 10%, 1% of our audience, of our listening audience, went over and liked that page, it'd be damn near on its way to being monetized. So if you could just do that for us, even if you don't watch the YouTube, I don't care. Just please go and put that like on there and that subscribe to the feed, and that will help us out no end. For how to get to all of this stuff, it is as usual, facebook.com/The Screen Masters. Top of that page there is a pinned post with links to all of the places you can find us, including your favourite podcast networks that we assume you're listening to us now if you're not watching us. But there we go. I've had enough of that, so let's throw it over to you, and let's get some news.
Okay, so nothing too major on the news front, just a couple of points which I'd spotted over the last, week or so, which I thought would be worth mentioning, stuff that you may not know. Firstly, that Doctor Strange 2 has lost the director in Scott Derrickson. He has, due to creative differences.
No, I knew you were going to say that.
Yes, the age-old creative differences approach.
Oh, brilliant. Yes. So we've got our first Phase 4 that's dropped it because of creative differences.
All I can say is that he is still on board as an exec producer, so he's still involved in that capacity. But yes, he has left as director. At the moment, there is no front runner for taking the position on, but we shall see about that one. I mean, it's quite a hefty film. It's got a lot baggage with it, I feel.
I think there's a lot to do with it because
series,
Scarlet Witch is going to be in it, and so her series must affect it in some way. And I've read a bit of rumoured casting this week that Christian Bale might be joining the cast, but they're not sure in what role.
So I've read similar
things.
At
this point. It's, obviously, this being early to mid-January at this point. Well, that was the last we knew at this point. It's supposed to be being cast, but we don't know who has. But oh dear.
Yeah. Another on the Marvel side, is Hawkeye has been delayed indefinitely at the moment. It's been pushed back, apparently. Well, this is the thing. When they say indefinitely, it's like basically they've shoved it back on the back burner of the slate. I don't know whether this is because their initial first choice, Haley Steinfeld for the role of Kate Bishop, has kind of fallen through, and that they're not really sure where to go with that.
Oh yeah, she'd have been a fab. I watched Bumblebee again the other day. She's so good in that film.
Very good. So we shall see. Obviously, Scarlet Witch kind of got pushed a little bit closer, so it's been pulled because I think the rumour mill on that is that it's doing quite well. Everything's pretty much done. So they pulled that a little bit closer. So we'll be getting that, I think, before the end of this year.
Interesting.
So yeah, but it's kind of shaken things up a bit. I think She-Hulk in there, Ms. Marvel in there. I think they're obviously leading a bit of a difference in terms of what they wanted now that they've put the slate in place. Hopefully this won't disappear entirely, because I still think, you know, a Hawkeye series would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and like you say, I was all in for a Kate Bishop one, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, having read the Matt Fraction, David Archer run on the Hawkeye comic, I love that. I've got that in trade paperback. It's a fantastic run.
Yeah, hopefully that won't be delayed indefinitely. You know, definitively.
Yeah, then we'll come back again. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and the final bit of news, which came as quite a pleasant surprise for me, Ex Machina, the Brian K. Vaughan graphic novel, is being turned into a movie. By Legendary
Actually,
Pictures.
do I want to say yay?
Well, this is the thing. Is it going to be one movie, 2 or 3? I mean, there's quite
there's a lot.
There's a lot.
What does it cover? 10 years?
It covers a good, I would say maybe 10 years.
Because it starts at the beginning and it's like 05.
Yeah.
Or no, it's like we're in the present day. And it's like, oh, blah, blah, blah happened in this year. And then we go back and we lead the story up to that point, don't we?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Ex Machina is a graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan about a guy who becomes the mayor of New York City. But previous to that, he was actually called the Great Machine, hero of the city, after being infected with kind of an alien technovirus.
Technovirus, isn't it?
And so he gains the ability to talk to machines. And it's very, very topical, because there is a 9/11 scene, which when I read it, I was like, wow, okay, well, we're touching that, which, again, you know, it's been long enough that maybe they can do something on those. Either way, it's a Brian K. Vaughan
Well, it was an alternate
story.
timeline.
It was an alternate
Not the
timeline.
alternate history like Tarantino does.
Yeah.
It's totally distances itself from the world we understand.
Yes, of course.
Or deviates itself off at that point.
But yeah, so another Brian K. Vaughan. So we've now got Ex Machina, we've got Why the Last Man working on the TV side, and we've also got Paper Girls as well, which I had finished reading, and I'm intrigued to see where all this stuff is going. So just a couple of noteworthy.
He's like the new
things
Robert
there,
Kirkman. They're like, hey, let's pick up everything you've ever done,
pretty much,
and then only one of them works.
Yeah.
But hopefully, Brian K. Vaughan stuff's good enough to work in many forms.
I'm hoping so.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because he's written some great stuff. Yeah, I mean, the only news I've seen Marvel-wise is our friend Kamal Nanjiani posted a picture of himself looking ridiculously ripped, because he had to get ripped for his role in the Eternals.
And apparently like porn sites have taken his image and kind of used it to publicise their own sites, apparently.
Oh really?
Because they've gone, check this guy out. And I don't really understand the link between
I quite liked his post, because it's like, I would never do this, but I've been working for about 9 months and just every day has been eating this stuff that I've been told to eat and being in the gym.
Yeah.
So bollocks, I'm going to put a picture of myself up topless to show you.
Criticise him all you like, but guess what? The guy's clearly gone through some stuff. You know, I mean, I've seen him in Silicon Valley. He's not the buffest guy in the world. That's just not his. So the fact that he's gone out there to the gym day after day, week after week, and gone, you know what? I'm going to show off my progress. More play to you, man. Yeah, why not? Why not indeed?
Just reminds me of the Ricky Gervais's comment at the Golden Globes when he said about, do we have a category for the biggest junkie in Marvel movie?
Yeah.
Because he was like, you're not actors anymore. You're just athletes who spend all day in the gym, eat loads of chicken and take steroids. And it's like, yeah, okay.
It's not
pretty much
too dissimilar to what the reality of that is, I'm sure.
I'm not going to say maybe not the steroids.
Yeah.
It is funny though. But because I can't imagine. They all seem to do so much work, and it's just days and days in the gym and eating chicken.
Yeah.
Plain boiled chicken. Or
plain boiled chicken.
Lovely.
Unless
they're vegans, in which case I don't know what they eat. But
I have no idea.
Like some wrestlers are vegans. What the hell do they eat?
Yeah, I know CM Punk was...
Because all the wrestlers you hear, they're like, I found a chicken place where I could just get plain chicken breast, and I just ate plain chicken breast while I was on the road. And it's like, what do those guys do?
Yeah, I mean, it's... Yeah, I'm sure it'll mess with their diet and things like that, and how they maintain protein.
There's a question for another podcast another day.
Yeah, there you go. That's yeah.
Doing that probably isn't a very good idea, because you probably can't hear the microphone very clearly, because I've got a mug in front of my face.
Why have you got a mug in front of you then?
Because I was going to take a sip, and then I wanted to say something.
All right then. Yeah, let's digress.
Anyway, go on then. This is your one.
Right.
The Expanse. Let's explore it.
Right. So yeah, I chose this one as I'm a very big fan of a TV series called The Expanse, which is a sci-fi show which is based on the novels of James S.A. Corey. Now, this is actually a pen name of two individuals. Now, one of them actually used to be the personal assistant to George R.R. Martin.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was a fake name.
Yeah, it is. So two dudes who kind of came together.
Pseudonym.
And started writing this stuff. And you know what? Compared to the books of George R.R. Martin, I thoroughly enjoy them even more so. So we are a good, 8, maybe 9 novels in now. Okay. So it's I'm a novel or so behind. But that's just because I refuse to buy hardbacks because they're too heavy to hold. And
it's that thing when if your first one's a paperback, you kind of want the rest of it a paperback, don't you? You don't want to mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. So just to kind of cover the general plot of the series, we're going to kind of break it down. When I was plotting this podcast, it was not the easiest one for me. I didn't know how to approach this for very many reasons. Now, I'm going to cover the plot, I'm going to cover the cast, and then I'm going to cover the science behind the show before we kind of delve into season by season.
Cool.
It wasn't the easiest way of trying to figure this out, but there is so much for me to cover that I figured let's do it in this way. So the general plot, set hundreds of years into humanity's future.
23rd century, I want to say. I think the 23rd century is mentioned at some point.
Sounds about right. I mean, it's a good, couple of hundred years. So I'd say 23rd, 24th century. The solar system has slowly been colonised. Mars is now colonised. A number of asteroids and various other entities have also been colonised to some degree. Mars and Earth are kind of the two main factors of the system. The belt, as it's referred to, kind of holds it all together. So we've got people living out on asteroids, on Ceres Station, on various other kind of similar asteroids. They kind of are the glue that holds everything together. They mine ores and water from all of the local asteroids and things like that for the benefit of Mars and for the benefit of Earth. So what happens is basically when an individual named James Holden answers a distress call for a ship which is in distress, turns out that the whole system is going to kind of be at odds, and it begins a search for answers to a huge conspiracy which will change the future of humanity forever. Now that's quite
I love that sentence. That's written by a marketing department of a TV
I wrote that
station.
myself, did you? I wrote that myself.
You should have a job in marketing.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, that's kind of the loose plot of it. We will cover the seasons one by one as it goes, but one of the things that actually attracted me to this is also the completely diverse cast of people I've seen before, people I've not seen before, newcomers, experienced veterans. So I'm going to quickly run through some of the characters just so that we've got an understanding. So we've got Christian Avasarala, played by Shariah Agadushlu.
I don't know.
Right.
Because I know her name.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to call her Avasarala.
Yeah, Avasarala, yeah. Who is one of my favourite characters, not only in the book but in the TV series.
She's of Persian descent, the actress,
yes.
And I absolutely adore her. She was the terrorists' parents in a series of 24.
Yes, she was. Yes, indeed. Yes.
And I remember her from that and various other
She's
things.
been in a great many things.
She's awesome.
Basically, a political power on Earth, kind of. A heavy presence on Earth as somebody that kind of oversees the government, etc. We've got Thomas Jane as Josephus Miller. What a casting. I mean, honestly, I could not think of anybody better.
Yeah, obviously I haven't read the book, so I don't know whether it fits it, but he's perfect. I can't imagine anyone else doing that role.
We got Stephen Strait, who I hadn't realised was in... was it 1 million BC or something like that?
Oh, really?
He was the main guy in that, which I never knew until
never
recently.
heard of him.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
But again, so playing the kind of main protagonist in many respects, James Holden. We've got a Brit, Dominic Tipper, as Naomi Nagata, who's just absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love her. The fact that there's a Brit in there as well always pleases me.
A Brit with the name Dominique.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah. Wes Chatham as Amos Burton, a truly wonderful character that really doesn't even describe the depths of how we get through to this guy as the series progresses. You slowly uncover little bits, but very brutish looking character. He's got so much depth.
He is my favourite character.
I figured that he might be.
A long way. Yeah. And when I first saw him, because we're both huge fans of Firefly, and I think you can draw comparisons between the two. At certain points, anyway. Certainly, in like season 2, there's a very big feeling of the crew of the Rossi, and they feel like a proper crew family. We start to get that feeling. And the first time I met Amos, I was like, oh, so you're Jane. You're the Adam Baldwin role. You're just the brute meathead who's an idiot. Who's just one-dimensional. But like you say, with him, just the more it goes, and you see him react to things, and you're like, huh. I didn't think you'd react that way.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem out of character because it makes sense. And to me, did you ever read Mice and Men at school? I read it for English Lit.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Lenny.
Okay.
Who was the one who wanted the rabbits and the alfalfa fields. But loved rabbits so much that he squeezed them too hard and killed them. And he when he finds someone that he likes or is nice to him, he's like, I'm going to make sure that no one ever hurts you.
And
it's like, wow. Yeah. And it just totally makes me think of Lenny because he is this he will kill someone and he has got no emotion at times.
Yes.
Like you say, as we go through, there's bits where he's talking to someone and he's like, look, I know you're angry and it's because I did this and you want me to say sorry. I'm not going to. Yeah. So can we just carry on? And it's like, that's fair enough actually, because then they've got the choice of going, no, you're a dick, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Or going, yeah, alright, let's just crack on.
Yeah, his relationship with other people later on develops, and hopefully
I've got a few scenes particularly I've picked out as we go through.
Hopefully we'll get
But the point is, he isn't the one-dimensional meathead that you think he's going to be.
Absolutely not. Cass Anvar as Alex Kamal.
That guy has a name that should be in Star Wars. Like his real name, Cass Anvar. Sounds like a character from Star Wars. I saw it because I saw it on the. I was watching it on Amazon Prime, so it's got like the little X-ray thing where you see the cast down the side, and I flicked it just to see what his name was, and I was like, Cass Anvar. I thought his character's name was Alex. Yeah. And I went, oh shit, his real name is Cass Anvar. That's cool.
So he's the Martian pilot who, again, we discern a bit more about his history as the series progresses. The great Chad Coleman as Fred Johnson. I love Chad Coleman. He's great in so many things.
I'm not right. He was Tyrese
in Walking Dead, yeah.
Yeah, all too briefly, so we won't go on that.
He also appears in the best show on TV, Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, does he?
Yes, he does. We've got as the series progresses, we've got a couple of other additions. I'm literally just naming a couple more. Frankie Adams as Bobby Draper, who I really didn't like to begin with. Absolutely fall in love with Bobby.
Fan-fucking-tastic character.
Absolutely
fantastic. And again, as we get through to some of the later seasons, I've got things to say about her because I wanted more.
Yeah.
I wanted more of her.
Cara G as Drummer, who is kind of Fred Johnson's number one.
She's really interesting.
Really interesting character.
And like the actress as well. I'm not sure where she's from. She's got a really distinctive
I think she is
voice.
British. I believe she's British. Could be wrong. We've got Jared Harris as Anderson Dawes, who is just a phenomenal character.
I don't feel that I got to know him that well.
But
I think he's in the first season, isn't he?
He's in the first season.
I'll be honest, I didn't
in the second.
watch all of it. I watched recaps for season 1 and 2, and then did 3 and 4 because I hadn't seen them.
He pops up a little bit more in the books, but I understand, as is everything, with TV from books to TV, they've had to make concessions here, there, and everywhere, and I understand that. I'm hoping that at some point, at a later point, he will appear again because his character is very important to some of the kind of developments.
Because he's still there.
Yes.
I'm thinking of season 4, and we see like Chad L. Coleman and him pictured together on a thing, don't we? So he is still there and still an active character. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe Jared Harris is too busy, they can't afford to get him back for the bit, or like you say, maybe they're just holding his story back a bit.
I think it is.
And then we'll see it when it becomes relevant.
Because although he may play a bit part occasional starts, like a conversation over, interspace or, tight beam, as they call it.
Tight beam, yeah.
Aside from those kind of conversations, a bit more to the meat of this role doesn't come until a little bit later. So I'm hoping that he does return. Terry Chen as Prax, who you can't help but mention, because I mean he's a great addition to the cast. It's a shame that he's not in it for as long, without giving too much away. And then finally, I'm just going to mention one guy from the latest series, Burn Gorman.
Burn Gorman.
Yeah, as Mercury.
See, that for me,
it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
He is fantastic, and I've got some notes on him as well.
Yeah.
I saw him and was like, it's you!
Yeah.
Because I've not known his name, because for me, he's Charlie Day's sidekick in Pacific Rim. And I can't remember anything else he's been from. I tell you what though, if you looked at his IMDb page.
He's in Torchwood, he was also in Always Sunny in Philadelphia as well, because
if you look at his IMDb picture, it's like him in like 19th, like Victorian regalia with a big wig on and stuff. It's a hilarious picture.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to.
Or maybe it was on the X-ray on the Amazon Prime, the cast bit again. But the picture they had of him wasn't a standard headshot. It was like him in full Victorian regalia, looking like he was in a period drama. It's really funny. Just as a side note.
Yeah,
yes,
I
love
him
him.
in a good few things.
Where's Ashford?
I've got Ashford. No, look, I've got Ashford there. Just literally.
Fucking love Ashford.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, because I remembered Ashford at a later drawing, I haven't actually got the actor's name.
Yeah, I don't have the actor's name either.
So yeah. But I mean, this is to name a few. There are so many other people. Elizabeth Mitchell, I know, pops up.
Yeah.
I really can't stand her as an actress.
I hate her.
I was hoping that she wasn't going to drag it down.
I feel
Unfortunately, she did drag it down.
Plays the same. I mean, they got the right person for the role.
Yes.
For the role that she plays,
yes.
She suits it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've seen her in about 3 TV shows, and she's played the same character in all 3 TV shows, and it's like, oh come on.
Yeah. She also appears. See, this is the thing. She also appears in series, and then they get cancelled, and I'm like, I don't want you to appear in my series because I don't think
she's the reason they cancelled Lost, but because she only turned up in season 2, and they still managed 5 more after that.
Only 2 she appeared in. Oh my god.
No, she popped up in season 2 because that was the first time we saw the tail section.
Okay.
And we got the encampment that she was living in with Ben.
Oh, right. Okay.
At the beginning of season 2.
You remember it. You clearly remember it a lot better.
I'm sure it's season 2, not season 3. Because season 3, I'm fairly sure the end of season 2 into season 3 of Lost was the flash forward episode.
We may have to cover
where we thought we were flashing back, and actually it turns out we were flashing forward into the future.
I wouldn't want to watch it all, but I think it's one that might.
I wouldn't want to watch it all either, but I do think it's one of those series again that's been coloured by the ending. I still say, you caught me at season 2 of that show, I was so fucking in.
Oh yes, I was.
I fucking loved it, but I don't think you can throw away all of that goodness. There is some fantastic stuff in there. How emotional was it when Charlie got killed? How emotional was it when this happened? When that early on, there was some really good stuff. It's just unfortunately, all the shit they were setting up, they got no fucking idea how to pay off.
That's a conversation for another day. That we'll focus on
one. Good. As long as you've got Ashford there somewhere.
Yes, I did mention Ashford. Unfortunately, I didn't jot down the actor's name, so apologies for that if you're listening or watching. Right, so, but like I say, the cast is absolutely immense. Now, I've heard it in loads of things, like talking about sci-fi shows don't show people of ethnic origins in prevalence and stuff like that, and I'm like, have you ever watched the fucking Expanse? Because if you haven't, you probably should do. They made a whole thing about Sonequa Martin Green, becoming like the face of Star Trek. Don't know if you watched the Expanse, but I'm pretty sure they've kind of got you beat in that respect.
I think it's difficult though, because if you look at the first series, who drives the first series? Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
And Holden and Miller.
Sure.
Drive the first series.
But that's not
there
to
aren't
say
a huge
that
amount of women or they're white American males.
Yeah. But at the same time, I would argue that Avasarala and Naomi Nagata pretty much front those
and
two
Cass
kind of
Anvar
roles.
is obviously of ethnic descent. I don't know where he's from.
So, but as it goes,
like you say, there are people of colour. There are females in prominent roles. Not playing second fiddle to white males all the time, and getting one over on the white males sometimes, and then showing to be, particularly in the most recent series, the who is it who's going for the positions of power? It's women.
Yep.
It's a woman walking away, or it's a woman versus a woman. So
you're jumping ahead. Jumping ahead there.
But that's like a general comment. Anyway, Karen.
But no, it is. This cast is absolutely fantastic. It just seems to get better and better as the years progress. I only have one, and we've already spoken about this off pod, that they recast Avasarala's husband in the latest series, which really did annoy me.
I mean, it's not even that I I'm upset that they recast someone who I think fit perfectly with her and who she had real chemistry with and played off.
Yeah.
Because I've seen those two play a husband and wife before in another TV show. I'm sure I have. I would almost go as far as to say he was the Muslim, like the dad in the thing, but I don't think he was. I think it was the Slumdog Millionaire, the guy who's asking the questions.
Yes.
I think he was the dad.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you're very right.
But I'm sure I've seen her and the original guy, like you say, from series 1, 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen them as a couple before.
Yeah, so that was the only upsetting cast.
I just don't think the other guy's as good an actor.
I just didn't. There was no chemistry between the two of them. But we'll get there. We will. So I mean, that was the cast. I mean, brilliant cast from my side. Now let's have a look at the science of the Expanse. Now this is one of the things where loads of interviews and loads of conversations I've read from NASA people who've actually stated that there is a good portion of the science in this show that isn't science fiction, it's science fact. And I absolutely adore that. The fact that they went to kind of a space agency conference of some description. Now this was just as the series had been cancelled for the 3rd season, and they went to this conference and Jeff Bezos was there at the same time and announced to the very audience there that he picked it up for the next season.
Nice.
And the whole room went into a round of applause because everybody there loved the show just as much as Jeff Bezos. So good man, Jeff Bezos. Right. So, but yeah, to get into the science, right? So there's loads of different notes that I put on here. Now, one of them, you saw the notes earlier, and you were a bit dubious.
Go on. So I'll let you actually read
the sounds of the ships. Now, unlike other sci-fi shows, you can't have your Star Trek where it's exactly. It's not going to happen.
Off into the distance.
You can't have your Firefly where there is completely muted.
There's no sound.
There is no sound because there is no sound in space.
Exactly.
As we
Joss
know.
did it properly.
However, I understand, and I will argue the fact that for a series which has an emphasis on dramatic effect, there is a certain level of noise that needs to be generated in order to kind of show the ship is powering up. But it's not. It's subtle. The ship kind of, reverberates because the power is actually coming on. It's hummed quiet. Literally, there is silence. When the engine's not running, there is pure silence. When it isn't, there is a bit of noise.
There's a flame. You get the sort of
exactly
flame noise behind.
Exactly.
You,
when they're firing their guns, you're not really getting the sounds of pew pew in space. You're getting like as though it's just ejected from the cannons and stuff like that. So that's something which I understand.
I get it, and I've learned to live with it. Because Firefly is the only show that I've ever seen that has done sounds in space properly. Because everyone else, like you say, I get it. You need to do it. You want to do it for dramatic effect, or to imply that something's happening, or so that you can hear the engine, and then suddenly you can't hear the engine, and something's wrong. Or I get it, but it isn't right. It isn't science.
I get it, but at the same time, you could say the same about Star Wars and Aliens and every other frigging sci-fi
absolutely.
show.
Like I say, Firefly is the exception to the rules. It's the only one that's bothered to obey the rules.
Yeah.
But there you go.
So we've got the Epstein drive, which is a fusion drive, basically more realistic than any warp drive or faster than light. What's that?
Epstein.
Because that's the name of the character that comes up with it.
Yeah, I know. It's just,
Saul Epstein.
That name's quite topical at the minute. So carry on.
Sure. I'm pretty sure they didn't come up with that.
No, they didn't.
And there is a wonderful little segment in one of the episodes which kind of explains like how he develops this. It was kind of purely by accident that he develops this drive, but it gets to the point where when he's actually out in space and he's using this drive, he realizes that he can't turn the engine off. So he ends up dying as a result of the gravity imposed on him because he's going at these immense speeds that he wasn't prepared for. And he's basically stuck at a chair and he can't move his arms because if he does, it's basically going to snap in half and he has no way of turning it off. And as horrible of a thing it is, it just shows that he was a scientist and that was his experiment. And I really enjoy that. Again, it's kind of emphasised a little bit in a separate chapter to the books. It's kind of a separate thing. So the fact that they included it in the series, I was very impressed by. Zero G is one of the biggest things that I think is really prevalent on this, which is the impact of bone density, like being born in space. You've got the Belters, a culture and a people who are born and bred and live in space. They have no gravity for them to be able to understand like bone density and how it can impact. So they have to have drugs in order for them to be able to live in space. In the books, it's described a little bit more that they're a little bit more elongated. They're all very tall, very thin, because that's as a result of living in a zero-G environment.
Yeah, there's no gravity restricting your weight, your height growth.
Exactly.
It's also an interesting on that zero-G. It's only something I realised the other day. I do think they've got a problem there a little bit, but we'll get to that later. But I never thought about, like Star Trek, for example. There's always gravity on the ships and stuff. And you watch The Expanse and you would think there's always gravity on the ships because they're all just walking around. But you start to realise more and more, oh, hang on, no, it's the boots.
I was just about, that's
they're in
one of the
total
other things I've got
zero-G,
on my note, yeah.
apart from the boots holding them to the ground. And that's not been done before. Because we always assume there's, either you watch films and there's always a spin creating gravity, which fair enough, and they do have a ship that can create spin gravity at one point, but only one. And I just feel that helps with the realism. Because yes, in 200 years, we're not going to have developed artificial gravity without, like say, spin gravity works. It's scientific fact, in a scientific way. But yeah, without that, without something spinning it, pushing it to the out, creating the gravity, how would you create gravity on a ship easily? You wouldn't, because it's too hard. Yeah. So you just make sure you've got boots that stick you to the floor, and that's all you need.
And the thing is it's not a throwaway thing of, oh look, these are boots. It comes up on numerous occasions throughout the entirety of the series. Somebody will click their shoes and then be landing on the thing. And it becomes an important point to remind you that, yes, they're in a zero-G environment. It has a huge impact. We've also got, dealing with injuries and things like that at various points. Somebody might get injured. They get shot. They get hurt. They get crushed against something. Well, you're in a zero-G environment. That blood is not going to coagulate.
But here's my problem.
Go on.
So, in I think it's series 3, we do get a lot of people injured.
Yes.
And we're pretty much told in one scene that having internal bleeding in zero-G is essentially a death sentence.
Yeah.
How was everyone okay in season 1 and 2 when they got shot then?
Okay.
How is everyone okay going forwards?
I can explain that.
Someone gets shot in zero-G in this particular thing, and suddenly it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
But last series we had someone get shot and no one was panicking. No one was going, by the way, this is a death sentence.
There is a reason for that, because at the point where they are in season 3, they are trapped in a speed zone. They have no way for the ship to be able to pull a speed at which gravity is then imposed.
No, I understand that. But if a lot of the Belter ships and like the Rossi and that, they've never got gravity.
Yes, they have. It's the gravity, the G is the speed at which they're going, which is where later on they have to take drugs. When they're going at a certain speed, they have to go at a certain speed. They have to take drugs because their body is not going to be able to cope with the G's.
Oh.
So that is how in this speed zone.
Okay, then I'm really confused. I'm not sure the TV show explains that.
I thought it did very much so.
The only time I've known people to take drugs in it is Holden in the latest series is injecting himself with something that becomes relevant later on, and is a treatment for cancer, I believe, is it?
Yes.
And then Nagata is taking drugs that I was under the impression were to
increase
bone density and muscle density.
When they're in their chairs. When they do the flip and burns and things like that. When they have and they've got the tubes and it goes into that and you see this horrible liquid and they're sitting there like, and it's like ice in their veins. That is the chemicals which are imposing the restrictions on.
Now I get that in the Mars when Bobby and Avasarala are in the ship.
Yeah.
It occurs
multiple times throughout the series. It's one of the first things in the first episode because they do a flip and burn because they're going after the ship, like the first ship that they come across.
Sorry, come back to the Behemoth.
Yes.
Or the Medina as it ends up being called.
Yeah.
That only generates gravity through spin gravity.
Correct.
It's motionless a lot of the time when we see it. They don't have the spin gravity going most of the time, it would appear.
Yeah.
So they're all in zero-G.
Yeah.
All the time. Because the ship isn't moving forwards, therefore it's not generating G.
At that point, yeah.
And they haven't got the spin turned off.
Yeah. We'll get there. I think we'll get to that a little bit later.
Just because they've thrown up that you can't have one thing and not the other. If Belters can cope in fake gravity and artificial gravity, why can't they cope in normal gravity? Because it's still pressure being exerted by gravitational force that they're not used to in the belt.
But again, this is the thing, like at various points, Naomi, when she gets to season 4 and she takes the bone density drugs so that she can go down to the planet, it doesn't necessarily sync up with her straight away.
No.
At various points, they talk about it on the ship. Yes, as a human, Holden, and as a Martian, Alex, and as a human, from Earth, sorry, I should say, Amos, they can deal with the restrictions of G's a little bit easier. Whereas somebody born in the belt can't deal with that. So that's one of the things. It doesn't necessarily emphasise it as much in the TV series, but it certainly does occasionally in the books, and it emphasises the fact that if this carries on, Naomi's going to be the first one to die because her body is not built to withstand the pressures. So, but
yeah, I did get that.
But that's fine. But so anyway, that's Zero G, and there's many other things that kind of come along with that. There's a beautiful scene where Alex is drinking beer, and then he kind of does a little spin and a little rotation at one point. Just a beautiful, wonderful scene. Again, emphasising that impact of Zero G. We've got space in general. The Battle of the Ships. There's no shields at this point. There's no shields and shit like that. When there's a tungsten steel, boom, coming through their ship, it flies past their head and destroys a monitor. And that realistic kind of damage to a ship, if it was an inch closer, it would have destroyed their fusion drive, and boom, they would have been blown out of the skies.
Again, there's no tractor beams. It's grappling hooks, essentially.
Yeah.
And when the grappling hook fires through the shell of the ship, it fires through the fucking shell of the ship and opens and then pulls back again, you know?
Yeah. We've got food, which is grown in vats, and on Ganymede, which comes up a little bit later, is kind of the source for the system because of the way that they've put mirrors and how they grow the food, etc., for the masses of the system, because there's a huge population now. There are billions of people. There's not a small population anymore. There are billions throughout the entire system.
Yeah.
Air and breathing on the ships is very important. Prax, whose character comes up in season 2, eventually kind of explains the significance of having plants in space and on stations and on ships and things like that.
Undertake a project, don't they, to sort of put loads of plants in the ship.
Prax panels, as Amos later calls them. You've got communication with Type Beam. It's not just, boom, here's, I'm hailing this person and I'm going to get an immediate response. No, there is a 20-minute delay between the message I'm sending here and when it's received on Earth. Again, a realistic impression of the actual.
Because again, like you say, they're doing Type Beam is a laser beam, and they literally fire a laser out the front that contains the beam, because that's what you would do.
So I suppose I wouldn't really call it science, but the one last thing I've probably got to say is not on the science, but more of the cultural thing is the language of the Belters. Yeah. They've created their own language, and
it's just it's a broken English, really, isn't it? But there is the Loda. They say Belter Loda. I don't know what that means, but they say it quite a lot.
I think it means belter, as in brother.
Okay.
That kind of, you're a belter lorder, you're a brother of mine, or a sister of mine, or, belters have this sense of family for all other belters. So, and that's, like I say, I think the science is one of the, this is science fiction, but a lot of this is realistically science fiction.
Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with that.
Any comments from you?
Just some general stuff. I mean, again, I remember watching season 1 in the first place, and I remember thinking, because I feel like it was in the sci-fi glut that we've discussed before. In I think it was the Alien episode where I was saying that Prometheus came around at a time, and Pacific Rim came around, and there was a glut of. There wasn't, sorry, not a glut, the opposite. There was a gap. There wasn't a huge amount of sci-fi. I remember watching season 1 and just thinking, fucking hell, this is the show I needed, but had no idea that I needed, It's a fantastic, meaty sci-fi series. And by that, I mean, there's, as you've said, there's so much depth to it. All the characters are well-rounded. Whether they're fully explored or not is another matter due to time constraints, but they all have three-dimensional personas, and they're all real. They feel like real people who could exist. There's, you can see the mythos out there for it. There's tons of stuff we could still go back to from the TV series and look at a bit more detail. Like you say, like the origins of Mars and the terraforming and stuff like that, and how they got to where they are and things like that. I think you can make a comparison to Star Trek. In as much as, I mean, it doesn't look anything like it because it's shot more like a movie, whereas Star Trek's shot more like a TV show and looks that way. But it is mixing the best stuff. It's mixing politics, race, class, all things that we can identify with, and then throwing them into that future space thing, and there's still a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what? All the Earthers are banded together, all the Martians are banded together, and the OPA are banded together, all the Belters are banded together. But then they're going off against each other because human nature is that we can never band together over one thing. Though as we see as it goes through, there is the potential there for everyone coming together to face a different threat or a different possibility themselves. But yeah, it mixes that stuff with the brain twisting sci-fi that you love from the core of the Star Trek episodes. You know, you knew if you had an episode where Jean-Luc had to go and negotiate the latest trade treaty between, but it was always very, the politics was always very well researched. It was always reflecting what was going on Earth at that time in our world, and just putting it up there and saying, look, these problems still exist. They're still being dealt with by other cultures, and now we've progressed past it. We're the ones showing them how to solve these things. I think I'd mentioned the direction, because TV shows, I don't feel like TV shows, directors
get enough credit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of time in TV, I think the direction is okay, or average, or nuts and bolts. Call it what you will, but nothing special, but solid and workable. I do think that most of it's the same for this, but there are some really lovely choices. Some flair shown, some lovely spinning shot choices. And going into like the production values, which would be my next point, is I love the way the Rossi's set up. The set that they have for Rossi, because it's multi-leveled, and you can see people up and down, so it makes it again feel like a real thing. Yeah. Whereas, as much as I love Star Trek, you walked onto the bridge of the Star Trek, and that's a set. Yeah, it's obviously a set. Yeah. Whereas the Rossi doesn't feel like a set, even though it is. It feels real. Like a ship that you're stood inside of. And also the CG that they use. I mean, again, the production value I think is amazing. The amount
there's a couple of
sets and things like that
on the CG that I will get to, because there's certain scenes where I literally was just like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah,
thinking,
I've just made note about the hybrids, which is a full CGI creation. Yeah. They don't look that bad. No. Look alright, they're a bit ropey in a couple of places.
The first time you see it, you're like,
they look really good, and particularly in season 3 when you see sort of the development of a hybrid. That looks cracking. Yeah. Considering it's network TV, I'm thinking back to our good old favourite Smalley and how much they bastardsed, Doomsday and all that sort of shit. And even the mod Narrowverse, God Almighty, the CG they use there is crap. And this was being made by Sci-Fi. It was network television originally, and the production value astonishes me from that perspective. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say generally then. So I've just got some points for the seasons.
Okay, so we'll start going through the seasons. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much, just for those of you at home. I'm not going to dwell too much on the seasons because I'm going to kind of go through them one by one and just kind of address certain big points or big kind of situations which occur. But I'm encouraging every single person that's listening or watching this to go and watch this show. You can find it on Amazon Prime. I would also encourage you, if you're a reader, to go and read these books as well, because honestly, I absolutely love them. But let's get into it. Let's get into season 1. So basically, season 1 starts with Julie Mao, a girl who is trapped inside the confines of a ship. We don't really know much more than that. She manages to break her way out, comes across this weird-looking alien goo, and basically screams because it looks alive. That is the crux of how this series starts, and I think that's great because it adds that science fiction behind it, a little bit of fear, a little bit of terror, a little bit of horror. What the hell is this? What the hell is out in the open?
The fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown, yeah. So we kind of follow the ship, the Canterbury, which Holden, Nagata, Alex, and Amos are all a part of the crew, and basically they're sent a distress call from this ship, which Julie Mao was on, and basically this distress call wants to be batted away by the captain. He doesn't want to answer it because it means that they're going to be delayed in their trade of ice that they picked up, and he doesn't want to do it. But Holden is a good-natured person, and this is where it kind of begins to set the fold for him, that he wants to answer this call, and does. He answers this distress call, logs it, and they have no choice but to go to it. Turns out it's a trap. It's been set for them, and then their big ship, the Canterbury, gets blown out of the sky. And this begins the crux of the series, that the camp has been destroyed. Who has destroyed this ship? Was it Mars? Was it Earth? Was it the Belt? Nobody knows. So we've got these sudden three factions kind of suddenly pitted against each other. At the same time as this is all going on, we've got Miller, who is on the space station series, who has suddenly been given this case of a missing person, Julie Mao. So he suddenly becomes engrossed in this investigation. Who is this girl? Where is she? How do I find her? You get the feeling that he's a shady character, that he's not necessarily Mr. Green Cut, but he's probably going to get the job done, or a kidnap job, as he refers to it. So that begins to unfold, and he begins to unravel more and more of a conspiracy that's going on involving Earth, involving Mars, involving the Belt. Who is the power at play here? We obviously learn later on. While this is going on, the Rossi gets rescued by the crew of the future Rossi gets rescued by Martians.
Is it Tachi?
The Tashi.
Tachi.
The Tashi, yeah. So they get rescued by Martians, taken on board, interviewed, grilled. You know, there's this cool scene where the Martians, because again it's in the future, they take these drugs where they just pop this little round ball in their mouth, and then suddenly their like pupils become fully dilated, and they can pick up every twitch and every, you know, every micro expression. There we go. Which is just again one of those beautiful little things. You kind of watch it. They're being grilled, they're being interviewed, and all this is going on. Eventually, the Martian ship is taken over by these unknown cohorts at this point. The crew of the future Rossi basically managed to escape onto the Tashi with one of the Marines, who dies, and they're left in charge of the ship. Eventually, they christen it the Rocinante, and Fred Johnson comes to help them out, gives them a bit of information, leads them on the right path to discovering who blew the Canterbury up and why. So it begins this kind of whole story of, okay, what's going on? Who's actually in control of the system? And as we learn, there's more and more going on. The series itself and Anderson Dawes. So this is where Jared Harris.
Just to stop there for a second. Series is a station within the Belt.
Yes,
is it?
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
it's one of the. It's one of the.
My head.
Yeah, it's kind of co-owned, they suppose, by Earth and Mars. Kind of, it's an important part of the Belt.
Would that be
it's basically
similar to Tycho?
controlled. Yes.
Tycho Station.
Yeah,
It'd be another
similar.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So while this is all going on, you know, they're basically going down the threads of what this whole attack on a ship and other attacks on Martian ships, and what does this all mean? And eventually it leads them to, okay, we need to go to Eros, which is another of, I think it's Jupiter's moons, I believe. And they basically learn that Julie Mao, they don't necessarily all follow the same thread, but they all realise that all signs are pointing to Eros. So Miller, having been fired because he's getting too deep into things, goes to Eros himself. So does the Rocinante. They manage to get the ship and they head out there. Eventually they all meet together, and it's just a wonderful scene because they meet up together. He basically saves their lives, and it's just brilliant because
it's Miller saves the Rossi's
crew, and so he turns up, he saves their lives. They go to investigate Julie Mao's room, and basically she's just in a puddle on the shower floor, covered in this weird blue, light, electric looking crystal stuff, and you just kind of go, yeah, that's not ended well for her. And you get the whole flashback episode basically detailing what happened to her. She gets infected with this proto-molecule. She takes it to Eros and becomes basically patient 1, or patient 0, I should say. This faction of people, who's actually turns out is led by her own father. Juliette Mao's father, Jules Pierre Mao, is actually the guy in control of this whole operation, and all of these scientists arrive at the station, put some lasers on her and expand this proto-molecule, basically with the intent of it taking over the whole of Eros Station. And that in of itself becomes a huge, huge part, because they start vaccinating people, but it's not a vaccine, it's actually to encourage the proto-molecule to accelerate. They put people in radiation chambers, which unfortunately affects Miller and Holden, so they become they become infused with huge doses of radiation poisoning, which becomes prevalent a lot but later in season 4. So they basically spend the last kind of episode trying to get out of the station, because the station itself is falling apart. Like, everybody is dying left, right and centre, everybody is becoming infected.
Yeah.
Those in control are trying to shut anybody else from getting out of there. And it becomes this whole story of them trying to get off the station, trying to avoid this alien proto-molecule and just trying to get away from it all. I mean, it's some of the final scenes of it where the proto-molecule just kind of grabs this guy from the middle of the station and pulls him up into the middle of Eros, and you've just got this blue tinge of light, and you realise that this is building. The best way of describing it is it's building a computer, and it's just building and building and building. And I mean, what a first series! Like when I watched that, first of all, I was literally on the edge of my seat, going, "I want more! I want more!"
Absolutely, same here. Because it finishes in the middle. It doesn't finish the arc as you would expect from a normal TV show to finish the arc at the end of the season and set the thread up for the next season. I feel. I think it's really intelligent the way they put it together at the beginning. Because like you say, you've got the crew of the Rocinante coming together over the course of a season, dealing with the sci-fi, the deep sci-fi aspect. And then you've got Miller running his thread, and as you say, they run parallel for most of the series and then dovetail at the end, which is great. That's good storytelling. But Miller is very much a flatfoot, I want to call him. He feels like he's just come out of a film noir.
Yeah, he's Shogun. Is it Shogun?
Gumshoe.
Gumshoe, sorry, Gumshoe.
Gumshoe.
Get it right.
Flatfoot or a gumshoe.
Yeah.
But that instantly, if your mind isn't going with the sci-fi, that's our way in. That's a trope we can understand, is the noir flatfoot detective who's going to kick down every door he needs to answer the question, to solve his case. And he doesn't care who it hurts and what he finds out at the time. He just wants to solve the case. And I feel that was a really effective way to bring any non-sci-fi familiar people not familiar with the concepts of what the books and that are dealing with, and what the show deals with. It's a really good way in, so that you get familiar with him, and then as he learns the sci-fi stuff that he doesn't know about, you're informed as he goes along, and you feel like you're getting those waves of knowledge, and going, oh shit, so this connects to and we're discovering things as he is, and that's really good, because when it does dovetail, you understand what's going on.
Like you say, the camaraderie of the crew of the Rossi builds, because they, at one point they're at loggerheads. They want to fight each other because they don't know who's a traitor, who's genuine. And eventually, by the end of that series, you're just like, this is a family unit now. They've formed that bond, and it works, and it's good. I mean, without not talking about Avasarala back on Earth, she's obviously got the politics going down. She's trying to keep the system from imploding.
Yes, trying to say, as well as we're watching them go and find out what's going on with the Cant and what happened, and him trying to find out where Julie Mao is. We're watching Avasarala, and obviously it's kicking off between Mars and Earth and the OPA. She's
just trying to put the pieces together.
Because they're all blaming each other for destroying the Cant, and they don't know who did. So she's trying to, like you say, put the pieces together and figure out what the hell's going on from a political point of view. But it's good. Like I say, it mixes. Like I said in my first bit, this Star Trek, it's that mixing the politics, the race, the class, the stuff we understand that we deal with in our daily lives. It still can exist further into the future, even when we wouldn't think it would necessarily, but it does.
I mean, they talk about they talk about the ships, they talk about the gravity, they talk about the medicines, they talk about the things that we discussed on the science side, and it's not a throwaway point. They explain themselves, and they make very good points as to why things are the way they are. So again, you're not a novice sci-fi person coming in going, oh, okay, this is... No, they're actually giving the explanations to you, which I think is wonderful. So we move into season 2, which begins with kind of the introduction, I should say, of Bobby Draper, who is a character to begin with. You're not really sure. She's a Martian Marine. Clearly has this idea that she can go out and fight every single Earther, as she likes to call them, and basically win the day. She's just a grunt at this moment in time. She's gunnery sergeant, and we don't really know much about her, but she seems like a bit of a grunt. Little do we know that she's going to become such a huge point. The tension between Earth and Mars is even more prevalent now because Eros has been quarantined. There's some shit going off there. Miller effectively becomes part of the Rossi crew, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing to see. They have this wonderful meal sitting around, like Alex has made them this lasagna, and they're all sitting around, and after Amos and Miller have had a little bit of a scuffle between the two, they sit down and Miller just tells them about this story about how they basically, busted a cheese cheese syndicate or a bunch of people that stole a load of cheese, and turned out all the cheese went missing, and everybody and it's just this wonderful scene, and there's just this sense of family sat around.
And like I say, I think it's around that time when in the season 2, probably around that time when I did, like I say, I there was a picture of them or something, or a shot of them all together, and I was like, yeah, you are the crew of the Rossi.
Yeah.
And
so
it was really nice.
It progresses that they basically want to find out who has been in control of Eros. What the fuck is going on there? They want to find the people responsible, because it's a tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people have died on this station for the sake of a science experiment, essentially. So they go after these scientists, and Miller becomes part of the ground crew, not on the Rossi, but he's still part of them. They break in, they kill loads of scientists because they're with a bunch of people that don't really know any better. They manage to save one guy, and they're quizzing him. The guy in charge, they're quizzing him, and he makes such a compelling argument for what they're doing that it scares Miller to the point where he shoots him in the head. And that's just brilliant, because it's not a case of, okay, we're just going to see this guy. No, boom, pulls a gun and just blows his brains out. And I can't remember whether I'd read the book or watched the series first, but I remember when I got to that point, I was like, well, shit, that just happened, didn't it? It just becomes a little bit more real at that point. Like, okay, people are going to die, and this shit is not going to go down.
Yeah,
So
cool.
at this point, a good portion of the crew are kind of in the know now. Okay, right, there's this protomolecule out there. The system is beginning to understand the significance of this. Now, Miller at this point is shunned by Holden because he's just killed a guy, and that completely goes against Holden. And I understand that, and there's then that tension there. While all of this is going on, again, Avasarala is still back on Earth trying to unravel this mystery.
Yeah.
Suddenly finding that the Undersecretary Aaron Wright seems to be part of this conspiracy, as well as Jules Pierre Mao. An assassination attempt goes out on her, so she then recruits somebody she's known from her past, a guy called Coiter. He's one of these actors I wish I'd made a note of, because he's absolutely fucking brilliant in this. He really, really plays well against her, because he just takes none of the shit that she offers, and I absolutely love that.
That's it, because she's a very dominating one.
Oh god,
yes.
yes.
She will, and I think that's what they played with when they cast the actress. They were like, cool, you're going to swear a lot.
Yeah.
And it's weird seeing someone who you associate, she carries herself very much almost like a queen.
Yes.
Very
and then, regal.
Exactly, and you see her in the news footage and you're like, oh yeah, I see why, and then you hear her in the back rooms and she's like, oh, you fuckers, fuck, this has gone wrong. Fuck.
You think that's bad? You should read her in the books. She is a fucking potty mouth in the books. It is brilliant. She has an assistant in the books who she treats absolutely appallingly.
Yeah, I bet.
And he kind of relishes it as well, because he's just like, oh, we're there.
A bit like Lloyd from Entourage.
Yes, a little bit, yes. At the same time as this, Bobby is on a ship, being deployed, to Ganymede, to kind of farm detail, as she likes to call it. She wants to go out there and she wants to fight. She's a
Marine, isn't she?
Yeah.
She likes the Marine bit.
She's up for a fight. She's up for a fight. She's up for a battle. So while this is going on, they're trying to figure out what the fuck do we do about the Eros incident. What are we going to do? And Miller comes up with the idea of sending the Nauvoo, which is a huge ship. And again, the CG for this is just tremendous, because is it the Mormons have had this ship constructed so that they can take it out into the
generation
star.
colony ship, isn't it?
Generation colony ship, yeah. And so they can take it out in the stars to a new sun for a new home. And this thing is absolutely enormous, and it's kind of been picked up a bit in the first season, slowly into the second. And Miller comes up with the idea of basically firing this ship at Eros to destroy it, and everybody kind of goes along with it. Holden becomes part of the plan as well. And the Rossi needs to be there to make sure and manage any resistance that's going to happen. So they come up with a plan to go to Eros to blow the thing up and send it into the sun. As expected, shit does not go the way it's supposed to.
Of course.
Miller gets stuck on Eros because the bomb that he's holding is about to go off if he doesn't put his finger on it every minute or so. The Rossi crew doesn't really know this until the last possible minute. And as this all goes about, the Nauvoo is getting closer, and then suddenly the whole asteroid just shifts completely out of the way, defying physics as they know it, because the protomolecule has become aware of their plan to sabotage
which
it.
we didn't know at this point.
Yes.
That the protomolecule
Is
could react
self-aware,
and was an entity,
Yes.
a sentient life form, like you
Yeah,
say.
so watching like the ship move and then the whole asteroid just kind of shift out of its way, again, Miller's just like, what just happened there? The crew is just like, completely flabbergasted as to what's just transpired because they have no idea. They suddenly start crunching the numbers, realizing how much heat, and again this goes back to the science, how much heat of a fusion reactor can cause this to do this, and again the science is all there, and they have to figure out what the hell are we going to do to destroy this. Now again, I don't want to go too much into the details because there's a beautiful scene of Miller kind of taking the bomb inside there and finding a protomolecule version of Judy Mao. And the little interaction there, and basically trying to stop Eros from flying into Earth, because at this moment in time, that's exactly what's going to happen. Eros is on a trajectory to Earth. We understand a little bit later, and again, I'm encouraging people to watch it or read it to understand the significance why. The Rosie at this point is laser targeting the place, and because of the speed that it's travelling, might literally liquefy themselves by chasing it at the speeds that it is, because the heavy G's that they're facing are causing them to have nosebleeds. They're like their eyes are suddenly bloodshot because of the G's. But eventually Miller manages to convince them to pull back, that he's got it in control, which again shows that significance of the relationship he's built up with the crew.
Yeah, he's built the trust with them, and they're part of his, they're part of the family. So
So Eros gets sent out, and he ends up crashing into Venus. Again, the details of that, I'd encourage people to watch the reason why. And that causes a huge incident, because it's like, wow, okay, the Eros incident has happened. But this isn't even this is the middle of the series now. That we're hitting the second half of the series now.
So for Gunny, Bobby, Draper,
yes,
because she's gunnery sergeant, as you say, so they call
kind of
her
takes a back seat
Gunny
a little bit
sometimes. But I adore her. When
Yes.
she was introduced, I think the actress is perfect casting as well, because she's quite a tall, stocky built girl, isn't she?
Yeah.
And she absolutely bang on for that part, especially, again, as she develops up and there's scenes where she's against two guys, and she's just sitting there going, look, I'll happily kick your ass again if you want, but can we just do it this way instead this time? And the guys are like, yeah, that's fine. Because they know they would get their asses kicked, because she's fucking hard. Yeah. But yeah, I really like her. I've got to be honest, it gets me a little bit, this bit, because we're at episode 5 when the Eros incident later, when Eros goes into Venus, but that's the end of the arc that we've been following since the beginning of the season, and it's just really weird for me. It feels odd because I'm so used to the arc ending at the end of the season.
I think they understood the significance of that, because they do change. Seasons 3 and 4 follow much more of the linear of the books.
So my assumption would be that book 1 is the end of Eros going into Venus.
Correct.
Yeah. Which makes sense. And that's fine. I'm glad that they gave it enough time to breathe then, rather than trying to stick to confines and say, right, we've got 13 episodes to cover this book, go.
Yeah.
I'd rather you spill it out if you want to tell the better story.
So book 1 covers season 1 and the first half of season 2. Book 2 covers the second half of season 2, the first half of season 3, and book 3 is contained within season 3, and book 4 is season 4. Yeah. But again, has little shades of future books as well. But we'll get to those as and when we get to the points. So at this point, then the Eros incident has happened. At this moment, Bobby is now deployed to Ganymede, and then suddenly there's the Battle of Ganymede, which occurs, which basically Gunny and her team are attacked, or they believe to be attacked by some oncoming Earth Marines, and it's not. It's a proto-molecule soldier at this point.
Oh, the hybrid.
The hybrid, and the thing looks scary as shit, and he just rips through her entire team, literally ripping them limb from limb out of these massive exoskeletons, and just completely tears them a new one. And this is where the mirrors on above Ganymede, completely shattered because of the battle in space, come crashing down, which leads us into Prax, who is a scientist on Ganymede, who's living there with his daughter, and he basically has no idea what the hell happened. He basically wakes up on a ship which is carrying refugees, and he's like, "Where's my daughter?" And his daughter is missing. So
May, isn't it?
May, yes. So it's now suddenly a search for him to find out what the hell has happened to his daughter. So he gets, his daughter has been kidnapped essentially, and he wonders what the hell's going on. He gets put on this refugee ship. Now, because they're being rescued by Belters, suddenly the Belters are like, we don't want part of this Inners war. So they space, as the phrase is for them, they space anybody from Earth or Mars, and they just flush them out into space. And it's a hugely harrowing scene. But they don't do it to Prax because, no, you're one of us, you're a Belter. And it's just like, again, the class system, the way that the societies are completely different now at this point. I don't know whether you've got anything more to add at this point.
No, I mean, like I say, but it depends. By the time, because yes, Prax is then, that's the next story, isn't it? So the crew of the Rossi end up in Prax's storyline, and Prax joins them to go off and try and find his daughter. And that's where we end the season, is in the middle of that search, because we're in the middle of a book, I now understand.
Yes.
But yeah, it's nice, and again, it's a new character coming in, and it's like some of them, because when we get to seasons 3 and 4, there's new characters introduced, and part of me was like, I wonder whether that character didn't get introduced until this book, or whether this character had been a background character in the first 2 books, but obviously we don't have time to cover them properly in a season.
Yeah.
So you just wait till the season that they're actually important, and then you just make sure you chuck an episode in explaining who they are and where they've come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt I liked him, and he worked again in the dynamic of the team. He gelled, he fitted in, he became part of the family.
Yeah, they have taken liberties, I will say, with some characters from the books to the TV show, as they have to. The character of Drummer kind of envelops, in season 3, envelops another character from the books, and his name is Bull, and basically he doesn't exist. His role gets expanded into Drummers, and there's a reason for that, because adding too many new players to the board becomes a bit of a problem. But yeah, so as this goes on, we've got Prax, who meets up with the Rossi crew, who are on Tashi Station, save Fred Johnson's life from mutiny, from
Tycho, not Tachi.
Sorry, yes, Tycho Station, and save Fred Johnson and his crew basically from mutiny, from other OPA agents, the Outer Planets Alliance, and basically he saves the crew, and then he lets them go on their way to go to Ganymede, even though he doesn't agree with it, because they've spotted a signal which could lead to the proto-molecule over there. Obviously there is, because we know that there was a soldier there. Bobby at this point has been saved. She's the only survivor of everything that happened on Ganymede, and is ferried off to Earth to basically sit in front of the people from Mars and Earth and give an explanation as to what happened and how it all transpired. And she begins the unraveling of this conspiracy within her own government. She doesn't believe it to begin with, and then slowly but surely the evidence is so much in front of her that she has no choice but to, understand.
And I think that's something you see as well, is the Martians are blind to any wrongdoing on their part quite a lot of the time. They won't accept the notion that someone from their culture could be behaving in this way or behaving in that way or lying to authority or whatever, because it seems so against their culture.
Her interactions with Avasarala were always going to be wonderful, and she's asking her, Avasarala's just asking some questions, and they're like, do you have to answer this? She said, I'll ask anything I fucking want, thank you very much. And again, it's just poignant. She's like, I'm a senior member of this team, I will do whatever the fuck I like, thank you very much. And then their interactions a little bit later, when Bobby kind of breaks out and gets away from the Martians, and it ends up kind of being a confidant of Avasarala, and kind of becomes her bodyguard as things progress. Which, I mean, is just a brilliant pairing. Those two together is just fantastic, as we later learn in season 3 as well. So basically, they've gone to Ganymede, the crew of the Rossi have gone to Ganymede to try and find some semblance of Prax's daughter, to try and find some semblance of the proto-molecule, and exactly what is going on there. And they get caught in further of the conspiracy. They meet some scientists. The hybrid, as you correctly labelled it, breaks out of its prison because they accidentally throw a grenade in and it gets set free, which is just fantastic. And it breaks free, and then that's it. There's the hunt for them. But at the same time, Naomi is still feeling the guilt of the Eros incident because she didn't save enough people. So she's like, okay, you go do that. I'm going to go and try and rescue as many people as I can.
She starts to, I think they start to introduce the seeds of her separation.
Yes.
Because it kind of upset me. Because you can see it coming, and I was like, no.
Yes.
This season is the first time I felt like you were all a family. Don't start sowing the seeds of dissent to split you back up again. But of course, over the course of a season, it does happen that way, and the seeds are planted for what becomes relevant later on.
Yeah. So again, there's a wonderful speech that she gives to people, basically saying we can only save like 50 or so people. That's it. There is not enough air on the ship. There are hundreds of you trying to get on it. We can't save all of you. And it's the wonderful speech that she gives and tells this massive bulking guy who's basically trying to, sort the people out to go on the ship. And she tells him the story, and eventually he understands the significance of her losing her Belter brothers and sisters. They all lost brothers and sisters, as she puts it. And eventually he places her, and she's like, no, you have my spot. And then eventually, he puts her in the airlock, and he's like, your job's not done yet. Mm. And the rest of the Belters are stood there. After having a bit of a panic, they accept their fate, that they're going to die, but they do it with dignity. And that is one of the really poignant moments of that season as well. Naomi knows that she cannot save anybody else, has no choice. She's had to, medically, pretty much put Amos into a coma because he won't, stop her. And it's just a brilliant, part of that series.
Absolutely.
And, Mars and Earth are dealing with all of the issues, death, everything that's going on in the belt. Avasarala and Jules Pierre Mao meet up on his ship, and then suddenly Aaron Wright comes on and he's just like, actually, I've just killed the head of the Martian government, get back to work, and by the way, you can feel free to kill her. And that's just like, boom, let's end it on a cliffhanger. And I was like, oh, you bastard, I have to wait a year.
Yeah, that's it.
And the Rossi escapes. But they've also got a stowaway of of the hybrid. Mm. They managed to get it out of their ship. They managed to kill the thing, and at the same time, a science investigation that is going on Venus throughout this entire second half of the series, trying to understand what this proto-molecule is. And their ship descends into Venus, and then suddenly, at the same time, and this is where it's very important because it kind of emphasises this on the book as well as the TV show, that when they kill the hybrid, the same thing at the same moment on Venus is when their ship gets torn apart, and that visual for me is
incredible.
Phenomenal.
And again, the way that then works through is that it's a deconstruction.
Yes.
They don't realise they're killing anyone. They just want to understand what's watching them. So they take it all apart into every single one of its component pieces and then put it back together. Well, don't put it back together again, but to see how it works. And like you say, that then continues forwards. And this is the thing about the show, is because it's based on books, it knows where it's going. Mm-hmm. It knows the story it's telling. It knows where this thread is going to end up, so it can set stuff up way in advance. And then when they actually want to pay it off, it's like, oh yeah, you set that up right, didn't you? I've forgotten about that actually, but you did do it. Yeah. And I think it's amazing. But as you say, I think we'll have to leave it on our own cliffhanger for that.
Yes.
And I think we may cover seasons 3 and 4 in the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call this one a two-parter. So for now, thank you very much for joining us on our journey through the Expanse. As always, go to the YouTube page, do all the stuff you should do. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that. All the links you need are over at facebook.com/thescreenmasters. facebook.com/thescreenmasters. Go over there, give it a like, send us a message, tell us what you think about the show, and we will see you next episode for seasons 3 and 4 of The Expanse. For now, I have been Bav.
I've been Fluff.
And this has been Screenmasters.